one.
Yeah, we are live streaming now. Thank you.
Yeah.
Right, it's 2 o'clock, Dominic, so the next start.
Yep, I'm just letting in the last couple of people now. Ready to start when you are, Chair.
Right, thank you very much. Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the informal meeting of the Bradford District Consultative Committee. We'll just do item 7 first, introductions. I'm Gareth Logan, Vice Chair of the committee, and I'm chairing today's meeting as Councillor Slam sends his apologies. Okay. Item 1, open forum. Dominic?
Chair,
Yeah, John?
2 things, Chair. First of all, when are we going to get timetables on every bus stop? And second, the second point I've got is that I keep hearing on radio leads every day that trains have been delayed because of breakdowns of trains and the signalling. Doesn't the Northern Rail or whoever is responsible keep up to date maintenance on them? But it's more important. The thing I'm more important is the timetables, because not everybody has smartphones, and there's one who's got a smartphone, but by the time I get to the bus details, the bus would have come and gone. But it is important that we have bus timetables on every bus stop.
Thank you, John. Dominic?
That would be one for one of the transport operators to get back to, or Helen might be able to answer.
Yeah, no, thank you, Chair. Sorry. So just to be clear on kind of responsibilities here, putting timetables on bus stops is at us as the combined authorities' responsibility rather than the operators. Yeah. So because of COVID and because of the changes that the bus services have had to go through COVID, putting timetables on all bus stops hasn't necessarily been done as the way we would normally do it in normal practice. We had to take those off and replace them with temporary information. As we slowly work towards normality, shall we say, as we have it, then more timetables are being updated on the bus stops across the region. There are 14,000 bus stops across West Yorkshire, so it is quite a job to keep the information up to date. Obviously, stops that have the real-time information is obviously a much better way of putting that information out, but not that many stops across the whole of the region have that information. So there's a process being gone through here, and there's a process around kind of trying to keep as much information up to date as possible. But we have had obviously over the last 18 months, had a significant period of change around what, services changing due to impacts of COVID, etc.
Have we anybody here from Northern?
Yes, Chair. Pete Myers from Northern. To be frank, our performance at the moment is pretty strong. We obviously feed Radio Leeds with their data, but I haven't seen. We haven't. There's certainly no increase in poor performance. In fact, it's quite good. We measure something called time to 3, which is every station within 3 minutes of the scheduled time, and we're currently sitting about 88% of that, which in the old measure, which was passenger performance measure, you may remember that was 5 minutes at destination. That would equate to that high 90, the low 90s, which is good. One thing that's come from COVID, and one of the good things that's come from COVID, is this focus on performance and the importance of performance. It came out of the back of the May 18 timetable issues, but generally what we've seen throughout COVID, we've seen really quite strong figures in honesty, and Network Rail are really coming to the party with their side of things to make sure signal failures don't happen, and the other things that can really upset the service.
Thank you, Peter. Is there any other questions on the open forum? No, thank you very much. Item 2, apologies for absence. Do you have any apologies for absence?
Sorry, Chair. We've had apologies from Councillor Salam, Vito Pizzuti from Transdev, and Graham Meikle-John from Transpennine Express.
Thank you very much. Does any member of the Transport Committee have any declarations of pecuniary interest? No. Item 4, possible exclusion of the public and press. No items.
There's no exempt information, Chair.
Thank you very much. Minutes of the meeting held on the 22nd of March 2001, which are just for noting. Okay. Item 6, again, the Joint District Consultative Subcommittee minutes of the meeting of the 26th of August 2001. Again, they are for noting. Item 8, Chair's update and transport review. I have nothing to update. Helen, is there anything you want to lead on the transport review?
No, there's nothing more to add on that point.
Thank you very much. Item 9, the information report. Are you leading on this one, Helen?
Yeah, I'm happy to. That's no problem. So the information report that's in your agenda pack, just one moment, I'll just work through. Here we are. So this is really just an update on the schemes that are happening within Bradford, and wider consideration on where we are, particularly around COVID. So I guess my question would be, are there any questions specifically on the information provided in the report?
John, did you have a question? John? Any other questions on the report? No? Thank you. Item 10, operators update. Who would like to go first on this one?
I'm going first. It's Mark Fennick, General Manager for Arriva Yorkshire. I think the recovery in terms of passenger numbers continues at quite a slow pace, but it is moving in a positive direction. I think when we've seen changes in passenger numbers and passenger loading levels, that's been in line with the previous stages of the easing of restrictions. So we too are seeing a slowly evolving picture in terms of a return to some sort of normality, whatever that may look like. I think we're being affected, the punctuality of many of our services have been affected by a number of quite key roadworks on corridors. We've had a couple of burst water mains recently affecting the 268. We've had two within 2 days of each other, two separate ones affecting the 268 there in terms of punctuality. We continue to fight a national driver shortage. I think we're probably not unique, not the only operator that's facing those challenges. In terms of staff recruitment, I think it's an industry-wide problem, something that's been exacerbated by the government's focus on resolving issues within the HGV industry. But it's something that we're battling through with.
Thank you very much. Any questions? No. Thank you very much, Mark. Who would like to go next?
Hi, good afternoon. I'm happy to go. Happy to go next, Chair. Just picking up on Mark's point there. It's a significant challenge right now, and I think it is well covered in other combined authority papers. I know operators across the board are working very hard, both on retention and recruitment initiatives. And members may well be aware of recent frequency service changes to try and help manage that resource. These are temporary changes, but this is a national industry-wide problem that we're currently coping with at the moment. There's a lot of energy and work going into operating and managing those services the very best we can at the moment, particularly as we are gradually returning passengers to the network, which is at least positive to see. There were three elements that I wanted to just add from First Bus perspective. First of all, just in terms of growth and return to service, that there's a lot of marketing energy at the moment going into partnerships and communicating service levels and reasons to travel. So we're very active in that field at the moment. That includes a £1 evening fare initiative to try and stimulate the market. Secondly, we have started to invest in extra staffing on the ground. So it's a small team at the moment, but there is at least one person in each of our operating areas at the moment. So we have a permanent representative in Bradford bus station, for example, at the moment, who's working with Metro Combined Authority colleagues, and obviously that very useful resource, and particularly if there are any issues in the city and helping customers in terms of communication. And my last point, well publicised, I think, in local media. We have had some vandalism issues, and I know that they happen across the district from time to time. They tend to be isolated issues, and we do communicate and work well with organisational bodies to try and address it. And in this case, in Homewood, the issues were addressed with support of the police, and actually those incidents have not been repeated recently with the support of the police, the Combined Authority and the council. Actually, we have seen those issues addressed, and where and if they do happen again, then we'll just continue to work with partners to try and address it. As I say, they are isolated incidents, but they are important incidents for us to deal with when they do happen. So by working together, I think we've demonstrated that we can help address that. think those were my key points. Thank you, Chair, unless there are any questions.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions first? No, thank you very much for that. Thank you. So next, have you got anybody else? Any other operators on?
Yes, I think it's just me to go third. Yeah, so the Transdev position at Keighley is perhaps similar to others. We haven't got enough drivers due to the national issue, so we're running a temporary timetable on our Keighley to Bradford shuttle, and we've still got a couple of the Keighley locals that we haven't yet been able to get back to their normal pattern on there, so that's impacting that. We're generally in the 70 to 75% range for customer recovery compared to 2019, with the odd notable exception. We've got one that was at 89 last week, so doing a few more routes like that, life would be a little more comfortable on there. So that's where we are. We've done quite a bit of work on marketing schemes to encourage people to travel back. So we issue people who are part of our mobile app a 3-day ticket, either to thank them for travelling with us if they have stuck with us in the last year or so, and to encourage them back if they haven't been able to. Quite a lot took that up, and when you give somebody a free ticket, they tend to like to tell you what they've done with it. So we've had quite a lot of feedback. People say how they welcome the fact that the buses were clean and safe and all that sort of thing, which is always good news, and that helps encourage other people back. We've got the £1 fare promotion that in the evenings that Brandon alluded to at First Have as well, and that's helping the evening recovery. So trying to stimulate people going out for hospitality should hopefully benefit both transport and hospitality, that one. And other than that, the network is stable at the moment. We hope it will be able to get back to 100% as soon as the driver situation is resolved. We are recruiting continuously at the moment. It's a very slow process at the moment to get people through the training scheme, the training system, with delays from DVLA and such like, hindering licenses. But yes, we do hope we will. We've had driver shortages before, perhaps not quite as severe as this one in terms of all the other things that are going on with it. But we always get through them. Hopefully, confident we will at some stage. It's just difficult to put a date on it yet. So I think that's it from me. Happy to take any questions as ever.
Thank you very much, Paul. Any questions?
Yes, yeah. Oh,
Yes, John.
Joy. Oh, God.
Can't hear you, John. Sorry, John, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah. I understand that between now, for the next 12 months, Morton Lane Bridge and Granby Lane Bridge are going to be closed at alternative months. What arrangements have Transdev done to make sure that the buses run on that route, on those routes?
That's a very good question to which I don't have the answer to hand, but I'll find out and we'll get back to you through this meeting if that's okay.
Okay, thanks.
Councillor Ria.
Hi, this is a question for the three operators. How much of an impact is the driver shortage going to have especially over the Christmas period? And have you got a contingency plan in place?
So I'll kick off with that one. I'm relatively comfortable about Christmas because, certainly from our perspective, we have probably about 40% of our fleet is used on schools, which won't be there then. So we can normally sort of cover the issue by using school drivers to help. So I doubt, yes, we also have generally speaking, slightly reduced services between Christmas and New Year. It's slightly more complex this year with the Christmas Day, Boxing Day, New Year's Day all being at weekends, which I think means we end up with 3 extra days of Sunday service, because the shadow bank holidays, we would run a Sunday service, where on Christmas Day we wouldn't operate at all, if that makes sense. So I'm as yet, well, put it this way, it's a bit too soon to be worried about it. I've got plenty of other things that are worrying me at the moment to be overly concerned about that. But certainly the headlines that we're working on is that we should be okay, because we've got school drivers and reduced services over there. But it's an ever-changing scenario at the moment.
I think I could probably add just a little to that. I think Paul's made some good points there, Councillor. I think I would also add that, although not necessarily in the public domain, the operators and the combined authority are meeting and talking very regularly on the subject. So there's a constant dialogue around what the issues are, and any kind of support that we can share with each other is being done. I think that the operations teams are working really hard and managing the situation very well. So certainly where there are any issues, and clearly any kind of cancellation is always a last resort, but where that does occur, then the operations teams are working hard to make sure that, for example, it doesn't happen on consecutive journeys. And they're managing the situation as best they can to ensure that connections are maintained. As I mentioned earlier, in terms of temporary frequency reductions, that they tend to be on services where there's already some high frequency, so customers are noticing the impact of that a lot less. But yeah, we're managing the situation almost day to day in terms of how we can minimise any disruption for customers. But I think Paul's right in terms of looking ahead. That break or that period over Christmas is probably not the key issue. There is some uncertainty going forward, but I know all the operators and the industry are working hard on both retention and recruitment at the moment. So hopefully the speeding up of licensing, for example, through the DVLA will start to come through, and that is certainly one area where we are encouraging partners to continue to apply that pressure as well.
And certainly, Chair, from a rural Yorkshire perspective, it's very much a mixture of what Brandon's outlined and Paul. I think it's about maximising the opportunities that reduced service levels over the festive period bring in terms of the Sunday service provision. It's about continuing to work with the combined authority to match our resources to demand as best we can. And it's such a fast changing situation. Christmas is fortunately still a number of weeks away, not too distant future, but there are much more pressing at the moment, as with all the other operational teams at the depots, absolutely working flat out on recruitment, doing lots of recruitment days, lots of advertising, lots of presence on social media, lots of press advertising, any which avenue that we've got to try and attract staff, and of course working with our team depots to see what improvements we can make to terms and conditions for people that are already with us to keep them here. It's not just about recruitment, it's about retention as well. Challenge that we're all facing in equal measure, really.
Okay, thank you for that. Do we have any other questions for the operators? Have all the operators presented their...
Chair, I can give a report from Northern, if you like, on the railway, what the railway is up to at the moment. I've already spoken about performance, so I won't repeat that. Customer numbers are interesting, really, because we've recovered well as far as the rail industry is concerned, and over the north of England as a whole, we're about 75 to 78% of our pre-COVID numbers on average. which is quite strong. But what we are finding is that is very, it's heavily slanted towards leisure market. So we're seeing a great deal of leisure travel, and even over the last weekend, we saw large numbers traveling to the coast, up to the Dales, and also into the big retail centres such as Bradford. So we're definitely seeing flows increasing, especially on a weekend as Christmas shopping starts. So that is encouraging, but clearly it's not 100%. And the commute, which was really our bread and butter, if you like, is very low. That is about 35% of what it was in a pre-COVID world. So much so that we are absolutely advertising the commute again, and the value of season tickets to customers. We introduced a flexible season ticket recently. This is a national product, one that was pioneered here in West Yorkshire. And this is where people can buy basically a carnet of journeys and pay for, we get 10 journeys for the price of 9 or what have you. And they are selling, but the sales aren't massive at the moment. So lots of work being going on to encourage people to use these if they are appropriate for their journeys, because clearly the working week will be different in the future, and we're certainly seeing Mondays and Fridays the commute is much lower than it would have been, than it is even now on a Tuesday, Wednesday or Thursday, as people probably work from home on those days. We're also encouraging people to travel generally, and we had a flash sale recently where we were selling lots of fares at £1. That was very successful indeed, and we'll be repeating that, no doubt, over the winter. It's very carefully controlled, so we don't crowd trains out, but that's been popular too. We don't have the same driver retention recruitment issue as our colleagues from the bus industry have, but our issue has been during COVID, and that of training, because we as an operator train a disproportionate number of drivers. We always have a great number of train drivers in training, and we could social isolate the classrooms quite quickly, and we did do, but there comes a time when those people have to drive a train, and we tend to find it probably not a good idea just to put them on their own. So they have to be in the cab with an instructor or a minder, and we could not socially distance in driving cabs. So for a period last year of about 8 or 9 months, we had no training, no on-the-job training going on. That changed over at the turn of the year with some terrific work by our own people and the trades unions, and indeed by the volunteers who do the training, because they had to form training bubbles. They had to test, before and after work. It was a great deal of work, but that made a huge difference. And the training started as the restrictions ease, so the training becomes easier, and we're now training a lot of drivers on the job, so to speak, in the driving cab. All our new trains are in operation, and all our people can drive those, because clearly there was a big training piece there with the new train started, and then COVID hove to view. So generally, that's how COVID is affecting us, and that problem will be with us probably through to the spring of next year. And after then, we should be back to normal as far as our resources are concerned. Mask compliance, I got reports about mask compliance several times at other DCSCs. It's not mandatory to wear a face mask on public transport. We do encourage it, and we encourage our employees to wear them, but it remains non-compulsory, and so we can do what we can do. The fuel issues we saw recently didn't affect the railway. We use a heck of a lot of diesel, of course, but most of it comes in via train to our depot at Neville Hill. And if I quickly jump onto Neville Hill, because there's a lot of work going on there at the moment, that today, Neville Hill is now purely a Northern Trains operation, and that is really important for the well-being of the railway here in West Yorkshire, because when Neville Hill sneezes, our service certainly catches a cold generally. It's such a busy depot, and we really, really have to, the opportunities that Neville Hill now being totally northern rather than being Northern and East Midlands Railways are terrific and will be realised over the next couple of years or so. Our December 21 timetable starts shortly for the Bradford district. That means our Halifax to Hull services will go back to hourly. They are currently every 2 hours. So that's good news. And there is an extra train going across out of Leeds through Keighley and whatnot up to Bentham and Morecambe. So that's that train, that timetable returns to its pre-COVID numbers. Apart from that, the only other thing I've got to add is shortly a community rail partnership forming on the Calder Valley. Calderdale Council, Rochdale Council are working on this, and that will really raise the profile of this important line. And so we're working with them to make that a success too. Other than that, Chair, nothing else to report from Northern.
Thank you very much. James?
Yes, I would just like to thank Northern for the provision of the passenger toilets at Shipley Station. They were installed a few months ago now. They've made such a huge difference, especially to people in Baildon. Friends of Baildon Station are absolutely delighted. Thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome. They are proving popular, and that's very encouraging.
Thank you. Any other questions for Northern? No, thank you. Moving on to our last item, which is the workshop session on travel and transport post-COVID.
Thank you, Chair. So essentially with this, I've got a few slides we want to go through and then to have a bit of a discussion at the end. So this is really around kind of the impact of COVID and kind of how we think, therefore, we need to emerge from this from a travel and transport perspective. And I've got some slides that I'll work through on terms of some background data and information to help us with that. So if I can share my screen, one moment. Okay. Okay. Are you seeing something? Or is it still just thinking about it?
It's still thinking. Helen, I can ask James if he could share it, if that'd be helpful.
It's okay.
Yeah, is that all right?
Is it sharing now?
No, it's just a black screen. Oh no, sorry, it's come through now.
It was just taking a little while to just process, I think. For some reason it's then, there we are. How's that?
Yeah.
Okay. Brilliant. Okay, so thank you for this. We really just wanted a few minutes in these conversations really to kind of get your thoughts and insight around really how, you know, there's some things we are doing to help us try and emerge from COVID on the transport side, but also kind of what things do you think we need to be doing more of and kind of building on. So I'm just going to run through some slides first of all that kind of start to kind of think about some of this and provide some kind of background based upon some of the research and survey work we've been doing as an authority. But then really kind of looking at kind of some discussion around the three questions that are at the bottom of here. So how has COVID changed your travel habits and perception of safety? What needs to happen to enable transport to support an economically sustainable recovery? And thirdly, how do we ensure transport options enable the widest range of people to be included in society? So if you could bear those kind of questions in mind, whilst I just quickly work through some earlier slides on kind of give you a bit of background on what we've been doing from our survey work, that would be helpful. Thank you. Okay, so we've been, since the start of COVID, we have been surveying people, passengers on both bus, rail, and through a phone survey, a wider phone survey to basically understand what the impact has been and what the impact could be going forward on how people make travel choices and how that works through. So you can see from the screen that kind of during COVID, there was, on bus, for example, the number of passengers both on bus and rail significantly dropped at the start, and that was mirrored in the fact that there was significantly reduced service offer across both of those. Car trips also dropped at the very start of the pandemic as fewer people needed to travel, but also requirements obviously to not travel. You can see over time how that has changed. So patronage has risen on both bus and rail over time, but also car trips have increased, and car trips have increased basically to where they were before the pandemic, but people haven't necessarily returned to public transport in quite the same way. So you can then see that through our survey, we have been asking questions around kind of how are you likely to continue, how is the pandemic likely to impact on your future travel arrangements, i.e. are you likely to continue to do more remote work, for example, remote online shopping, or are you likely to return to your old habits? So you can see from there that 19% of our surveyed people say that they will use the bus less, and 17% would say they will use trains less. And understanding how that translates across the wider population is quite important for how we manage our services going forward. So this slide just basically shows future commuting by different modes and what that therefore means across the different periods of time. So there is likely, there could be likely an increase of people making fewer trips, i.e. mixing working from home and travel. And so that is basically suggesting that there could be no significant difference between users of different demographic groups, but also kind of a bit more of a shift of only commuting a fewer number of days a week, which again has an impact on number of people returning to public transport. So from this you can just see we've just summarised kind of the key findings from both our research and the research from Transport Focus. And as we've just been showing, road use has recovered better than public transport, which is mirroring the national trend. West Yorkshire residents say that they expect to travel less by public transport, i.e. in a 5-day week if they're working full-time for 5 days, maybe only travelling 1 to 3 of those days. And working from home and online shopping is likely to have a greater precedence in their life than it did before the pandemic. And also Transport Focus, in terms of their research and how that's mirrored across here, it's basically saying the same kind of outcomes are basically mirrored here. So particularly the line around 42% say they won't use public transport unless social distancing is in place, and 47% agree that they won't use public transport unless passengers are required to wear face coverings. So the safety element on public transport is potentially also playing out in terms of how people will or won't return to public transport. So I've now just got a few slides on kind of how we're addressing this within West Yorkshire. This isn't necessarily the whole picture on everything we're doing, but it's just some kind of key elements that show by mode just some of the key things that we are doing in different areas. So firstly, on bus, you may be aware that we are in the final stages now of preparing our bus service improvement plan, which is due to be published, or is due to be submitted on the 31st of October and published on the 1st of November. The bus service improvement plan essentially sets out a 5-year network plan, making sure that our bus network is reflecting kind of the change in requirements and making sure that it is accessible by all across the network. So there are a number of areas within our bus service improvement plan for which the network part and that 5-year plan is one area. We have a number of points in there around ticketing and kind of different ways and easier to access the bus network, and in different ways through different ticketing arrangements. A passenger charter for improved passenger information, and a number of bus priority schemes across West Yorkshire to help reduce journey times and increase reliability. The bus service improvement plan to be submitted at the end of October. Then we have to work with operators to be in an what is called an enhanced partnership to start delivering from April next year. So that will, through our enhanced partnership, we will be delivering a number of short-term benefits for customers over the period of the plan. As part of this is our M card, and our M card is our a ticketing arrangement that we have on the multi-operator ticketing platform for both bus and rail. So there is a mobile app that was launched in the spring, where customers buy these kind of barcode tickets, and customers can buy day saver tickets on there now, and buying blocks of day tickets. So different ticketing arrangements to provide greater flexibility for passengers, and particularly part-time commuters as well, as they only need to buy the number of days that they go. So providing kind of greater kind of flexibility in that world is something that we've been focusing on. So then on rail, we are looking at kind of doing a number, in addition to the M card, on rail, a number of kind of flexible contactless season ticket options to essentially, again, as per the M card, allowing people to only buy the number of days that they need to travel. And essentially kind of trying to promote this and make people more aware of it, because as you can see there, take up has been low so far. But also trying to enable people to have that flexibility when commuting. There's also been a focus via the rail delivery group to kind of encourage people to take the train and kind of encouraging that modal shift. Again, looking at trying to move away from modal shift away from the car to rail, and enabling that to happen a little bit more. In walking and cycling, we have been delivering through government funding the emergency active travel schemes, which was funding enabled by government last year to deliver a number of schemes across the country to make it safer for people to walk and cycle, especially giving people more space, for example, where space was tight on public pavements and highway. And this therefore means that we can have a safer and more protected network to allow more people to travel by cycling particularly, and walking as well. And so this has kind of enabled that transfer through those schemes. Some of those schemes will look to become permanent over time if take-up has proven that they are beneficial. And overall, I think one of the key things that's kind of been looked at through COVID and to improve safety has been around cleaning and enabling more understanding of how people travel, but also cleaning particularly around our bus stations, on the buses, and working with operators around a number of areas to ensure people feel safe when travelling through both buildings and on public transport. And also as reflected there, going back to kind of the ticketing products enabling change, but also other fare offers, for example, the young people's fare on the return to public transport, and enabling a cheaper kind of fare for young people. Also, as some of the operators mentioned earlier, there has also been operator fare promotions, for example, the £1 evening service, to try and encourage people back to public transport. So I guess just going back to the original questions, kind of how, and taking into account some of that background, kind of thinking how you kind of feel around your change in habits and what more we could be doing to encourage people to return to public transport. Thank you. I'm going to stop sharing my screen if that's okay, because you're all kind of shoved in a side and I can't see anybody.
Right, thank you. Right, do we have any questions? Comments?
There was some that came through over text chat, I believe. Are you able to see those, Helen, or shall I read?
I can now. Yes, I can now. So the first comment, the future commuting by mode. Do you have the figures for cycling? Let me just check. This one here. Do we have it? We should potentially. I don't want to commit as if we haven't, but I can certainly go back and find out. That's not a problem. In terms of how the survey is broken down, we would need to check. We can certainly have a look. Should I pop through the rest of them?
Yeah, just go through these.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. So the next one around specific issue on Wakefield Road. Good question. I would look to Bradford City Council, I think, on this one specifically, because it is a scheme on highway. But
take it away and look at it, Helen. I mean, obviously, I don't know the individual scheme myself, but I would certainly have a look at it. Okay, that's fine. And then the last comment there is in relation to that scheme above, I think. Okay. I think that's everything in the comments. Can I just check, Gareth? Yeah. Do you want to work? Is there some other kind of questions within the call outside the chat? I can't tell.
You covered everything. You covered all the chat questions there. Are there any other questions for Helen? No? Right, thank you for that. Right. Thank you. Well, that concludes our meeting today. And thank you all for your attendance. And hopefully we'll be able to meet up in person soon. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you.